topic areas. So before I get started, is there anything you guys have on your mind or that's going on that you have questions about?
No, not really.
Really? I mean,
go ahead, Phil.
not really. I like that. Reading through the slides. I'm so thankful for the notes that have things, because we add our own stories into them, kind of interweave them into them, which is great. Right now, I'm just kind of in the process of just kind of learning the material and going through each slide.
Okay.
And it makes sense. So the only thing, I do have one question.
Sure.
I'm even getting a little ahead of myself. Some of the slides, well, I guess I can ask this next week. But as we went down, there's another sign-in sheet on that slide 32.
Yeah.
That's kind of a reminder toward the end. And then the Herm Edwards thing, is that where you put that? Is that where you put that in, kind of at the end?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I wasn't sure how to bring this up or not, but we are in the process of revamping the whole Double Goal Coach 1 presentation right now. So you guys, timing-wise, it's tough because you're going to be certified in this slideshow the way it is, and this is what I was told to do, train you in this slideshow the way it is. But then starting in August, there's actually going to be a new PowerPoint that's coming out that's going to be very similar to this, but just has slides in a little bit of a different order, and it's updating some of the studies that have been done, and it took out some of the videos. So just because of the timing of this, I kind of asked Ruben, how do you want me to handle this with this new class coming through? And he said, train the group with the slideshow the way it is. And, it's not, as I said, the changes are not big enough to make an issue at all. But the slideshow in August is going to be changing to something a little bit more updated and a little bit different order. So just to let you know, so the Herm Edwards slide is going to be actually put at the beginning.
Okay, that does make more sense.
Yeah. It is, and it's funny. One of the things we always encourage trainers, once you're certified, once you feel comfortable, once we give you the thumbs up that, we feel confident that the PCA message is really being shared the right way, we do really give you the freedom to make it your own and change some slides around and add some things in. We have a whole file of approved workshop videos that are PCA's licensed to use. And so if you feel more comfortable using a certain athlete, oh, I lost Phil. If you feel more comfortable using a certain athlete over another, like if you're doing a workshop, for example, for a soccer team, we have some more soccer player slides to put in there.
Right.
So
yeah, I was pretty interested in the first question that you sent out. Was it the first question? Yeah, I think it was the first question for this
Sorry
week.
about that, Phil. I'm in a bad area.
Either first or second question this week.
That's funny, because that was one of the things that I was looking at. I'm like, that's like a little better up front when you're talking about, do you remember the coach, the legacy you want to leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
That towards the beginning?
Yeah, that is.
Okay.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, it's a little bit hard for me because I've been doing this for 5 years, and the Double Goal Coach 1 PowerPoint presentation I use is not the same one that I'm teaching you guys, because I've shuffled some slides around and changed a few things and made it a little bit more personal to things I relate to better. So you do have the ability to do that, but for consistency and for training purposes, we wanted to train you in just the basic.
Makes sense.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem. So that's where we're at right now. Basically, what I wanted to do, what I want to start getting into, and what I did with the group on Thursday was, I really want to drive home the point that there's certain goals of this workshop. There's certain objectives that you want the coaches to go home with. And the script that you say and the words that you do and the activities that you do are really your own, as long as the goals are met. And what we found is sometimes we have trainers coming through certification and they're able to memorize all the research studies and they can tell us, exactly every bullet point on the slide and they have it memorized. Yet they're missing the whole point, and they're not seeing the big picture of what each of these principles is going to do for these coaches and how it's going to change the way they coach and how it's going to get more out of their players. So that's why if you've noticed a lot of the questions that I send out are not, tell me the ELM Tree of Mastery. It's, really I want you to be challenged. I want you to think about, is scoreboard focused coaching a bad thing? How would you use some of these tools in reality? I want you to be able to make these principles real for the for the coaches that are coming to your workshop. So again, you know, the information is very, very good. It's very important, but you really should be the one sharing the information. The research studies are there to back up the common sense points that we're making and the goals of the workshop. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So what I want, the first question that I had for you guys, and I asked this to the group on Thursday, was if we're just talking about the ELM Tree of Mastery principle, what is your objective in sharing that principle with the group? What's your overall objective? What do you want them to get out of it? What's the goal of sharing that information with them? In 1 or 2 sentences, what would you say?
I think it's my objective.
I mean, there's so much. I'm sorry.
Hold on one second. Let Guillermo go first, and then you can go, Phil, because I don't know if you can hear each other.
Sure.
Go ahead, Guillermo.
I think my objective will be for them to actually really just realize that all of this is common sense. That allowing the kids to make the mistakes that any adult or young player can actually make and still learn from it and get better at it is very important. And that's the way I look at it, from the sense of, you know, being able to master something. You can't master if you don't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it. That's what I think will be the most important thing for any coach that will take the class or come to the conference or what have you to be able to get it.
Okay.
I think you lost him again.
I did. I don't know if it's his bad connection or mine. Are you there, Phil? Oh, he's ringing.
He's ringing in.
He's ringing in. Can you hear him when he talks, Guillermo?
Yeah.
Okay. Now he's not answering.
You reached Colbert, and I'm not available.
All right, he'll call back.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So you really focus on the mistakes. You think that was the most important part for you, is that they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, I think that, you know, one of the things that I've noticed with my the team I coach, the 3v3 team that I coach, which my son is in, a lot of the kids want to play it safe. They're unwilling to make that mistake, and if they do make the mistake, they kind of look at me and say, like, are you going to yell at me or what?
Right.
And I was like, no, you made a mistake. It's okay. Let's move on.
Yep.
And usually later on, I'll pull them to the side and say, like, all right, so what did you learn from it? What are you going to do next? What are you going to do different next time?
Yeah.
So how are you going to, you know, overcome that mistake, for that matter? Because I'm like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that to me is huge. I mean, the effort is there from all the kids. I can't, you know, and learning, like, you know, I teach foreign language, so I know about mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I read a phrase a while ago, a long time ago, when I first started teaching, and it said, it was I don't know, some type of phrase by some guy in Sweden or something. It says, you know, to learn a language, you must first murder it. Don't quite use it that often, but I mean, it makes plenty of sense. I mean, you can't, you know, you're gonna make mistakes, and
absolutely. That's great. One of the things, Eric Eisendrath, I stole this quote from him, but he often, his very quick introduction to this principle is the simple fact that and this is again based on research, the #1 impediment to peak performance is what?
Fear.
You know?
Fear.
Fear of what?
Making mistakes.
Fear of making mistakes. Coach. #1, and that's non-controversial. Research has all said that is the #1. That is the #1 impediment to peak performance. All we want as coaches is to get peak performance out of our athletes. Yet we're putting fear into them by the way we coach and by the things we do.
Right.
So
exactly.
Right there, right off the bat, you're right. Fear of mistakes is huge, and as coaches, that's what we do. We chastise them for making mistakes, and that's right. Not the way to get the best performance out of your athletes. So absolutely. I don't know if Phil's coming back with us or not, but if not, that's okay too. I'll try him one more time. I think he said he was in McDonald's or something.
Yeah, I think he said
to get Wi-Fi. So we'll see if he's there. If not, we'll just keep going.
Yeah, this is crazy. You know?
Phil?
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Did you want to try? Do you want to try to sum it up in 1 or 2 sentences? What do you think is the goal for the ELM Tree of Mastery?
Yeah, I mean, for me, in one or two sentences, I mean, there's a lot. First of all, there's a lot to this.
Yes.
But for me, I think I could really hear what Guillermo was saying, but it also boils down to mistakes, allowing that room for error. You know, one of my nieces is, oh, what's going on now? Just room for mistakes. You know, allowing your players to make mistakes and learn from them without the fear of you yanking them out of the game.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's similar to the way Guillermo thought. He was really focusing on that idea that it's okay to make mistakes, and that when a player does make a mistake, you know, as you said, yanking him out of the game is not the best way to do it.
Especially when it comes to youth sports, this is a time for development. You have to have room for mistakes.
They absolutely do. You know, it's interesting. I just dropped my daughter off at field hockey practice right before I got on this call, and she is a freshman. She's going to be a freshman in the fall, and so she's going to be trying out for the JV team. And this is her first night of nighttime open play. And as I was literally driving her there to drop her off, she said, "Mom, I'm so scared I'm going to screw up." And you know, she knows what I do for a living, and she always says, "Mom, don't give me all that PCA stuff. Just talk to me here." But she said, "I know it's okay to make a mistake. I know I'm not going to be afraid of making mistakes. I'm going to learn from them, but they're judging me," she said. And I just stopped for a minute and I thought, okay, in an athlete's mind, to be thinking, okay, it's okay if I make a mistake, I'm going to learn from it, that's great, but she's got a set of coaches that she feels this whole time is tryouts. It's tryouts, and every time she makes a mistake, they're knocking off another notch, saying, nope, she's not going to make it, she's not going to make it. So, I mean, I was just thinking about that as I was driving over here. I thought, wow, the pressure, she knows that it's okay to make a mistake, but if a coach is not making that an option for her, she's not going to play her best. So
wow.
I was just thinking of that on the way over.
Talk about it.
My niece is going through this exact same thing right now. She plays college basketball, women's college basketball at D1, and her coach is all over her. And every time that she plays shooter guard, and every time now it's getting to the point where when she makes a mistake or doesn't make a basket after a couple of shots, they'll yank her out. So now she's afraid to pull the trigger. She's afraid to shoot. And it's messing her up in her mind. It's really frustrating.
It is. It's tough. It's very hard. So I think the reason I brought that up too is because I want to let you know that, you know, it's tough as PCA trainers. We come in here and we have all these great principles and we have this great research to back it up. But one of the things that you'll find is a lot of coaches do things out of habit. And I think I think it was Hank. It wasn't you, Phil. I was thinking it was you. But, you know, answered the question today about the scoreboard-focused coach and things that a scoreboard-focused coach would share with his players, and some of the things that a scoreboard-focused or win-at-all-cost coach would say to the players to motivate them, and admitted, you know, we've all done the same thing as coaches because that's how we were coached.
Right.
You know, saying if you screw up, you're going to run, or you're going to get pulled out, you're going to get subbed, or if you don't score, you know, 10 points in the next 10 minutes, your team's a failure. You guys are going to come out. We're putting new people in. This is sort of how it's ingrained in our mind to get the best out of players. So it's really a challenge for us to share this information with coaches in a way that they'll actually accept it and learn from it and change a little bit about the way they coach. And I'm always very sympathetic to coaches, and I'm always the first to admit the ways that I've coached in the past that I've now learned are not the right ways to do it. And I think just setting that up right off the bat to your audience takes a lot of the pressure off. And you don't become the expert anymore. You become the person that learned this just a little bit before they did. So I'm putting that out there because I think that is helpful.
No,
just to get buy-in, almost like a buy-in. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's important to let whoever, you know, your audience know that you're not the one that's never made a mistake. It's like, I just learned a little bit sooner than you did, so here's how it goes. And here's the difference between the two. Yep.
Exactly. So let's go through some of these principles. Let's go through the slides. And as I said, you're welcome to stop, and I have some notes, you know, to put in there that might not be in the slideshow. So let me just go through and explain sort of what I do. One of the first things I was going to start at the Marshall slide 11 is the We Are Marshall. Now, do you have your slideshow open there, Guillermo?
I do. Let me just go back to 11.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. Let's see. I can show you on here too. Phil, do you have your slideshow there or no?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So let me show. There you go, Guillermo. You can see where I'm at.
Yeah.
If you scroll down to slide 11, that's sort of where slide 10, you know, kind of started with these are the 3 principles that go through every workshop. I always start off with that because that's the glue that really holds all this together. Slide 11 starts with the We Are Marshall. Now, this is another one of those videos that may or may not be taken out of the workshop, the newly enhanced workshop. A lot of the trainers have criticized that this is a little bit too Hollywood and does not drive the point home because it's a bunch of actors. However, this first video is one that I always use 100% of the time, and I don't use it to show a great example of a win-at-all-costs coach actor. I'm not really telling you the story about We Are Marshall as much as I am. When I show this video clip, I want the audience to pick out some things, and I always say to the group, all right, I want you to watch this type of coach. I want you to watch. This is a halftime speech. The team is down. This is from the movie We Are Marshall. But more importantly, what I want you to notice is how does he address the players? What does he use to motivate the players? And what are some things he does very well as a coach? And I always start off with that because I think a lot of times people will come in thinking that you're going to be telling them that they're not coaching the right way. And what I like to make very clear to the coaches that I present to is that there are many, many different ways to be an excellent coach, but there's very few ways to be a bad coach, but they are even more important to know. So I actually point out, you know, this coach here, Rick Tolley, is not a bad coach. He's doing some things that are going that he does well. He does things well. So my first question, and I'm sure you guys have both watched this clip, what are some things you notice that this coach does well when he's addressing his team?
And then Paul, I think he said, "I'm proud of you." You know, and that's, when somebody in a leadership position says, "I'm proud of you," I mean, that's kind of just a boost. You know, even after a tough loss, he does kind of start off on a positive note. And you know what? To a degree, you know, people remember winners, but if you go even deeper than that, you know, because they say, you know, they don't remember the effort, they remember the winners. If you go a little deeper than that, people really only remember the winners. You know, you can't tell me who won the Super Bowl 4 years ago. Most people can't.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. Guillermo, what do you think?
I kind of agree with him. I mean, you know, it's not. I don't think it's bad to tell, you know, the group that, hey, you know what, I'm proud of you guys. That's the good part, right? But then he goes on to say, like, hey, you know, but sometimes a good effort is not enough.
Right.
And that's a fact of life. I mean, sometimes you put a good effort in there, but it's just not good enough. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. He's not kind of like, you know, nail him to the cross, for lack of better words, by not winning. It's just saying, hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to look further in.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then I address the audience and I say, okay, this type of a coach, what is this coach focused on? Where's his focus? And a lot of times the group will say the score, the winning, and I say, yeah, we have 2 different terms for this type of a coach: scoreboard focused coach or win at all cost coach. And I ask the group too, raise your hand if you've ever had a coach like this. Has anyone ever played for a coach like this? And most of the hands go up. And so that's just basically, I don't go too deep into the Marshall story. I just start by saying this is a great example of a win-at-all-cost coach. You've seen them in all shapes and sizes, all different forms, from U6 all the way up to the collegiate level, professional level. So that's how I stop that video. Now, the next one I talk about, the next slide goes into the Joan Duda study. And again, this is a study some have criticized. If you're using a study from the year 2000, it's out of date. So again, this is a study, though, but I don't push too hard on the study as much as I do what the study has found. So, again, I don't sit here and push the research like this is great research and that's going to defend my principle. It's saying, you know, really interestingly, Joan Duda from University of Birmingham, she did a study during the Olympics and she categorized coaches into 2 different categories. Ones that were focused on the scoreboard and winning, and those that were focused on mastering their sport, task-focused or skill-focused. And at the end of the Olympics, it was amazing. She found out that the coaches that had a mastery focus and players that focused on mastery and skills won significantly more medals than the coaches that had this win-at-all-costs focus. And, you know, again, it's a quick slide. Don't go too far into the research, but it is interesting to see that. Now, most people would say, okay, that makes sense. I get that. But then the big question for the audience is why? And this is where I open it up. I want you to turn to the person next to you and in one sentence explain to them, why do you think coaches that focus less on winning actually win more games.
Uh-huh.
What would you guys say to that?
I think overall you have you're
Because
focusing on
they
everybody.
honestly, because if they're focused, if you say, I watch basketball games, and I've heard coaches say, in the first quarter, don't worry about the score, don't worry about the score. We just execute our plan. In other words, master what we do, stay focused on what we're doing, and the scoreboard will work itself out later on. If you get caught from the scoreboard in the first or second quarter, you get something that can be self-defeating.
Yeah.
Focusing on the wrong thing.
Absolutely. Good point. How about you, Guillermo? What do you think?
I think that basically main reason behind it is you're looking at not just improving for we'll say 1 hour, you're looking at total improvement. Anybody can play great for an hour. I mean, you could be the luckiest guy for an hour. But yet, if you're mastering the sport, you gain the knowledge, you gain the skill throughout, and that allows you to be be able to get through however many rounds you have in the Olympics, because it's not just one round in the Olympics. You have your pre-qualification rounds, and you have blah 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 blah. So I think that's the biggest thing. Is like like I said, you can get lucky once. You can you can be an archer and hit the whatever you call that thing.
The target?
Yeah, the target, right in the middle once or twice. And if you're just focusing on that, right, you start looking at the score. Oh, I'm doing great. Well, it's more like a marathon, not a sprint, I guess you want to put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then it goes down. The next video, again, I think this is one that we're actually taking out of the presentation, but if it's one that you like, there's a trainer named Alan Strachan up in New York, and he loves the Matthew McConaughey video. He spends more time on this clip than any of the other ones because he's been a coach multiple times of a team that's had 0 wins. And so he has said this video is very powerful for him because he's had a team like this that didn't have a lot of skill, and he's had to find a way to get these players motivated to come back out day after day, week after week, and perform. So again, this is a preference for him, but this video, what I do with this video is have the audience look at not the Hollywood around it, but what is that coach actually saying to these players? What does he address? How does he address the players? What does he call them? Did either of you catch what he calls those players?
No, I didn't catch that.
I forget what he called them.
He calls them men. He calls them men. And I think that's such a subtle little tiny thing that's thrown in there. But when you take a player and you identify them as a person, not as a soccer player or a basketball player or a football player, you're valuing that person. And so many times coaches will say, oh, this is Jimmy. He's my #1 star basketball player. Well, what happens if Jimmy doesn't have a great game that day? Then all of a sudden Jimmy's self-worth went down. So I think this is a really good clip just to show the way the coach talks to the players and the way he values them as people and not equating their worth on the worth of the game. It's a game that they play. They're a good person either way. So that's how I use that clip. I think it's really a powerful clip to use that way. I sort of take out the drama and just get down to the core of look at the players' faces too in this clip. The first clip, what do those players' faces look like? Well, they look defeated. They look scared. But the second clip, if you look at their faces, they pretty much have no chance of winning, and they look inspired and fired up and ready to go. So I always find that I always thought that was a really cool way to just put that video into perspective. So then the next slide is slide 14, and this is where it kind of breaks down the principle into results focused versus scoreboard focused versus mastery focused, and this is where we talk about the acronym, the ELM Tree. So as this slide shows, the first thing that I say is in any given sports contest that you're in, no matter what sport it is, I'd like you to name 5 things that you absolutely have no control over. Go ahead. And I just have the audience call them out. What are 5 things you have no control over in any given sports contest? Give me one. The refs.
The way they prepare for the game.
Way they prepared. Yep.
The opponents.
Their mentality coming in and their level of focus.
Yep. The opponents. Guillermo said the opponents too. Yep.
That's what I meant. Yeah, the opponents.
Yep. How about the weather?
The
No
weather,
control over the weather.
scoreboard,
Yeah.
The
fans.
scoreboard. That's what I love that, Guillermo. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Somebody always says the scoreboard. And I stop them right there and I go, isn't that funny that as coaches we are so wrapped up in the scoreboard, yet if you really think about it, as coaches and as players, we don't have control over that scoreboard. Let's look at what we do have control over. And that's where I show that if you click the clicker and you show that what you can control. And this is my goal for this principle personally. Do these, it's really control the controllables. So right here, if you look at that slide that goes down the mastery definition, what can you control? Effort. Can every player control the amount of effort that they put into a practice or a game? And the whole audience says yes, absolutely. Learning. Can a player control whether they learn from other players out there? And usually, I'm fine. And 90% of the time they say yes, they are in control of what they can learn. And the last one, mistakes are okay. Are they able, is the coach able to make it clear to those players that it's okay that they made a mistake and they're going to learn from it? So those are the three things they're in control of. And then if you look at the scoreboard definition, are the players in control of the results of the game? Nope. Are the players in control of others? Nope. If a coach makes it really clear that mistakes are not okay, is that in their control or out of their control? Control what you can control. Thank you.
Right.
So that's how I use that chart. Again, I go through it pretty quickly. It's the ELM. This is the very first acronym. This is the first acronym that we give them in the workshops, and it makes it pretty easy for them to understand. But I don't spend too much time really digging so deep into every single one right here and there. I want to make them real for them. So sometimes the letters aren't as clear for them. Go ahead, Phil. What were you going to say?
That's your question. Like, so, I'm kind of going over these notes, and in this particular one, I set up an example where, I asked you, how many of you have ever coached your child, and how many of you have run an errand after, play the game where the kids still wearing that uniform, going to a store, people first into last, win the game. Did you stray away from that now, that kind of setup?
No, I use that more when we get into the scenarios. Each principle, when we get to the end, we do the scenario menu, and that's where I use that. That's where I talk a little bit more about, personally, do you coach your own child? How do you feel about that? But I don't put it in right here, because the beginning of the workshop, I really want them to have a good foundation of the principles, and we have a few scenarios thrown in there, but I wait till the end to really dig into the meat of the scenarios.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, so then moving along to the next slide. The next slide gets into, this is really the nuts and bolts of it right here. What happens when this is non-controversial. This is another thing that I think is really important to share. There's a lot of controversy in research, and this idea of mastery level coaching is non-controversial. And that's a strong word. A lot of people don't like to use that word in research, but that is one that we use. Mastery coaching gets results from the players. So if you take a look at the next slide, it's slide number, where is it? 15. I'm just doing this for you. I don't say this, obviously, in the workshops, but 15. The research shows when you're coaching in this mastery climate, anxiety is going to go, and I have everybody put their thumbs up or thumbs down in the audience. All right, where's anxiety going to go, everyone? Well, anxiety is going to go down. Self-confidence is going to go up. Okay. Now, who out there in the audience has an entire team, 100%, of anxiety-free, self-confident players? Anybody? 100% of your players. And obviously nobody usually raises their hand. And I ask them, I say, okay, your challenge is to go out to practice tomorrow or the next time you're out there, and I want you to just focus on positively reinforcing the player's effort. It's just that one little thing. I'm not going to ask you to bite off too much, but just next time at practice, just focus on the player's effort. Not at all if they make the shot, not at all if they get that final play, just effort. And I want you to let me know how their performance improved. And it's funny, I just put that out there just to give people something to think about. I've had people email me back 2 days later and say, Kelly, it was amazing. You wouldn't believe the results I got from just focusing on just effort.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's just something that, something that I like to do. So then again, mastery gives player a feeling. This is the core right here on slide number 16. It gives players a feeling of control because they are in control of what they can control. They work harder, they stick to it longer. So then we get into the scenario. And this next scenario, slide 17, is one of the first scenarios we put in. This is just for your sake. We put this in early because it's a great way to get the audience to interact. So I asked someone in the audience to read this for me. Can I have a volunteer to read it? You know, Jesse hangs his head every time he misses a shot, and as a result, doesn't get back on defense. So for me, this is a great opportunity to get the group up and moving and talking. So depending on who your audience is, sometimes it might be a whole group of soccer coaches. I would say, okay, what I'm going to do is give you 2 minutes, and I'd like you to get with 3 or 4 people that are coaching the same age level that you coach. So I might point around the room and say, U8 over here, U10 over here, U12, U15, whatever it is, because I want them to get with people their own age. Because obviously, coaches would handle kids differently depending on if they're U15 or U8. They're going to handle a kid like Jesse a little differently. So that's something that I do. If you have a group of different sports, you might have a youth organization that has 10 different sports, I would ask them to get with people that are coaching their same sport. And here's what I do. I say, okay, guys, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I want you to talk about how you would handle this as a coach, a player like Jesse. And the person in your group whose birthday is closest to today is going to be the spokesperson. So after you discuss it for 2 minutes, I'm going to ask each group to share what they came up with as their best answer on how you'd handle a kid like Jesse on your team. Go. And what I like to do, I have an online stopwatch. It's an app on my computer, but there's also www.stopwatch.com. And I show that right on the screen. I minimize my PowerPoint, and I maximize the stopwatch, and I have it right on the screen so they know they only have 2 minutes to share this. That really helps with crowd control because I don't have to just look at my own watch or look at my own phone and then say, okay, everybody, let's get quiet. You know, as soon as that stopwatch goes off miraculously, the crowd gets quiet. And so that's really helped me a lot with management, especially in big groups. That's helped out a lot.
Yeah.
So what would you say if you guys were in a group? How would you handle this kid like Jesse? You can either pretend you're a coach or just give me your answer. How would you handle this?
I would encourage him to go back on defense.
Okay, Guillermo, go ahead.
I would probably just encourage him to go back on defense. I mean, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself or not, but one of the ways in which you can praise him correctly, what have you, or talking about the mistake or dropping the mistake, whatever signal you may have with your team if you have one, to just forget about it and continue working on it. And on the next break or what have you, or later on the next day or what have you, depending on the situation, just kind of practice it or talk about it and see what was going on with them.
Okay, great. That's a good suggestion. So I like the way that you said you would talk with him about it and you would encourage him to forget about the mistake and move on to the next play.
Right.
Okay, great. Phil, what would you say?
No. I would say that, you know what, if you can't get back on defense, then, you know, the least you can do is give an effort next. If they can't get back, they can't get out.
All right, so you would take him out of the game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what is the positive about doing that? What would that teach him?
That he needs to give an effort no matter where he is, and he needs to keep his mind on the game and keep his mind in the present.
Okay, so you have a standard on your team that they have to give maximum effort, 100% effort the whole time, and if he doesn't give that effort, he's going to be taken out of the game. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you've made that clear to your players that the reason you're taking him out of the game is because of his poor effort, not because he missed the shot. Is that correct?
Are we playing there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the reason why. Absolutely.
Okay, so, now this is off the role play here. What I like to do, what I think is really important, whenever you have scenarios and you have an open question out there to the group, always bring it back to the principles. And this is common sense too, but you would be surprised how many answers you'll get that even after you've explained the ELM Tree of Mastery, you'll put this question out to an audience and they would give an answer like you just said, Phil. Like, I would just take them right out of the game. I'd sub them right away. So what I like to do, it's really important because the audience needs to be validated for what they say. They're participating. You don't want to shoot them down. But what I just did was I took what you said, because I think you were probably trying to, be like a heckler in the audience saying I would take him out. But I tried to make it clear that, you know what, it's okay for a coach to sub a player as long as you know that you're subbing that player because of his lack of effort, not because of his missing the shot.
Right.
Does that make sense? So whenever you field an answer for the audience, like Guillermo's too, I said, okay, I understand. That's right. You were focusing on forgetting the mistake and moving on. You know, because the next principle, the next tool we're going to talk about is the mistake ritual, and I've just tied that into that. So anytime you can take anything the audience shares and link it to either a tool or a principle or something we're going to talk about next, that's a connection. And then when you bring it up later in the presentation, you go, oh, yeah, I remember that. We talked about that. Because I have a lot of coaches will say at this point, too, well, you know, I might bring him out of the game just till he calms down and really just try to point out the things he did well instead of really focusing on the mistake. And a lot of coaches will say that in the workshops, and I'll say, oh, what you just did was called filling his tank. And this is something that we're going to get to later on in the workshop. So that's it's just a good way, you know, to acknowledge the person's answers, but then also link it back to our own language and our own principles.
Right. And I like what you're doing there, because you also are not shooting the coach down.
Right.
You know, you're not embarrassing the coach, which I kind of like.
Yeah, which is important, because if you shoot somebody down, you know, you're gonna lose them. You're gonna lose them right there.
Right.
So yeah, that's exactly why we do it. All right. So then the next one goes into the toolkit, and this is why I really think it's important for you guys to just know. I said, you know, I think there's 6 different tools. Keep them in your back pocket, know them well, know sport-specific examples. I have about 2 different sport examples for each tool in the toolkit. The very first one we share is the mistake ritual. And one of the things that I always share, and this was in the book as well, one of the things that research has found is really effective with athletes is to have a physical sign that lets the player know it's okay that he's made a mistake, learn from it, and move on. Because the most important play is going to be the next play. And if that player's focused on the mistake they just made, like Jesse, not getting back on defense, harping on it, it's not going to help him move ahead to the next play. So one of the things that we talk about at PCA is something we've borrowed from Mike LaGarza, a coach of Redwood, California college basketball, and he does a mistake ritual he calls the flush. So I have everybody in the room, put up your arm. Everybody put up your left arm, your right arm, hold 2 fingers up in the air, and when I say go on 3, I want you to make the loudest toilet flushing sound you possibly can. 1, 2, 3. And I get a room of 60 coaches to make this big, loud toilet flushing sound, and they all kind of laugh. And I say, all right, you got a kick out of that? Imagine 7-year-old boys. They love it. Anything dealing with poop or potty or toilets, they love it. So, again, very great, easy, simple mistake ritual to use with kids. Other ones people have said, brush it off, or wipe your brow. If you coach girls, one of the things I found in coaching girls is they always have a hair tie, usually around their wrist. And sometimes they snap out of it. That was something that Julie Foudy, one of the U.S. soccer players, she often did. Snap out of it, snap out of it. Another one that I just learned was from Gallaudet University Athletics, and in sign language, when you put 2 fingers together and you let it go. So this is something that they use on their soccer team, let it go. Do any of you have any mistake rituals that you like to use?
I learned about that one, which I kind of love, which I started using with my son, but I learned it from another coach who was coaching in Everton about the whole racket thing from getting into tennis. When he does get the ball out of bounds, he turns and has that kid squeeze it, and you know, you kind of squeeze it because it hurts, and then you kind of release it and you let it go.
Yeah.
You release it, you're squeezing the net, the net, the racket, and then you release it, you're letting it kind of go.
Yeah, I remember that. I read that. I think that's great. How about you, Guillermo? Do you have any that you've used?
Actually, no, I haven't, and I think I've never actually thought about it. It's a great idea. You should just tell the kids, hey, you know what, move on, just forget it and move on. Let's go on.
Yeah, it's kind of fun too when you have one thing like to unify the team. Like this is something we're gonna do. Maybe you have something you do yourself, but if not, here's something we're gonna do. The flush, no sweat, brush it off, whatever it is. Somebody else said, cool your head. You know, put your hand on top of your head, cool down, cool your head. And the funny thing is, I've had players say they've used it with their coaches. When their coach starts to get a little bit anxious or excited, or they'll say to the coach, hey, coach, flush it. It's okay. Let it go.
I love that.
So
I love it.
It works both ways. It works both ways. All right. So then basically that's what we do in the ELM Tree of Mastery. Those are the slides that go along with it. Before we get into the next principle, which we're going to do next week, we've got about 10 minutes left. But what I do want to do is just show you real quick, and I'll pull it up here. The scenario menu, if you haven't had a chance to look through it yet, let me pull it up for you so you can see. I think it's slide 32. I really encourage you to go through all of those different scenarios. For now, yes, it's 32. Can you see that, Guillermo?
Yep.
The
I
first
have it on 33 actually. But yeah.
Okay. The first 6 are all scenarios for the ELM Tree of Mastery. And this is 3 days before we do our presentations. We give the partner a call. And we do sort of a pre-workshop interview. And I ask them a few questions about their background in the school and the audience and the people that are going to be coming and their youth organization. But I also ask them, why were you interested in becoming a partner with Positive Coaching Alliance? And that answer right there will dictate what scenarios I share with that group. Like, for example, if they say, well, you know, our coaches are a bunch of screamers. They really are tough on the kids. The parents are arguing that they're very upset with the way the coaches are treating their players. So if that's the case, then I might make sure that when I do the ELM Tree of Mastery scenarios, I would pick the mistakes are okay scenario. And if you click on that, that will take you to another scenario. Again, another opportunity for coaches to share their ideas, move around the room, get up and talk to other coaches, and it's just a great way to make it interactive. Again, if the partner has said, you know what, we just have a losing record every single year, and we're having trouble keeping these players motivated, you know, there's another scenario called losing badly. That's one you might want to show. So I usually say have at least 2 for each principle at each workshop. You might not have time to do any of it. This scenario menu is great because if you've rushed through the whole workshop and you've got an hour left, you could do a whole hour on this scenario menu. If you have gone slower than you thought and you've only got 10 minutes, at least do 1 or 2 scenarios from this menu.
All right.
But just familiarize yourself as much as you can with it, because you'd be surprised how many times, like someone in the audience, when you get to the end, I always say, okay, are there any sections of this, any one of these principles that you really feel like you want to go back and explore a little bit deeper? And then the person might say, well, you know, I really, you know, I have trouble with my team getting really nervous before we play. And that's when you look like the professional, because you pull it up and you go, oh, well, let's look at this. Is this what you're talking about, the big game nerve scenario? So, you know, everybody's so impressed that you have these scenarios right there at your, right there, quick and easy. You look so professional. Yeah. Let me turn my light back on here. Oh, that's too bright. Hold on. Okay, so as I said, I don't want to hold you over the time, but I wanted to stop there. If you guys have any questions that you, or if anything that you aren't sure about or anything, just let me know. Now's your chance.
I think.
Not right now. I mean, I'm just, you know, like I said, I'm just kind of going through this, learning it. But not at the moment.
Okay. All right, Guillermo, and I know that went through that quickly. Do you have any questions about anything?
No, not at all. Actually, so well explained, and it makes plenty of sense. It's just a matter of practicing and getting comfortable with the materials. Kind of like, you know, using the ELM tree for for us in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing too, with each of these principles that you do, the more talking the audience does, the better. So anytime you can put a question out to the group, you can have them stand up, sit down. I mean, I often too will have all the coaches, when I first go through that mistakes are not okay, I would ask, you know, one of the things I'd like to do too is say, okay, everybody stand up. Everybody in the audience, they all stand up, and I'll say, okay, I have just missed the most important shot of the game. I just missed a free throw. Nobody was guarding me. It was 2 seconds left in the game. As my coach, I want you to show me with nonverbal body language that it was not okay that I made a mistake. What would you do? And it just gets everybody in the audience up, and I'll say, okay, here I go. I made that shot. I missed the shot. Show me. And I'll have coaches throw up their arms or slam their clipboards or put their hands on top of their head, and, you know, anything like that. Again, it's getting the audience involved. It's making them, they'll remember things more. Just from educational research, they only remember 10% of what people are told, but they remember up to 70% of what they're involved in. So anytime you can get them involved, the better.
Got it.
And we kind of give you free reign. Anything you have up your sleeve to get this group motivated and involved, you know, the more the better. I could share with you 10 other ways that I get people involved just in this principle alone. But as I said, those are things that I do. There's a lot of other trainers out there that do a lot of different things. So, you know, feel free to share anything that you have or any great ideas. Are we good? All right. Well, I appreciate you getting on the call here. I will, if you didn't get a chance to, if you wanted to see some more ideas, I did send that link out to the call we had on Thursday. There was a few other folks on that call, so if you wanted to get a chance to peek in on that one,
I will.
You can do that too. But I'm here if you have any questions, and if not, I will talk to you guys next week.
All right, thank you.
When's the next call? Is it Thursday again?
The next call is going to be Thursday. Yeah, I decided. I mean, 4th of July is on Friday, so I think we're going to try to squeak in the one on Thursday, and then we'll do it again on Monday night.
All right,
What's
perfect.
on Thursday?
It's going to be at noon, 12 o'clock. The calls are always going to be 12 o'clock. You're in Florida, right? You're in Florida. East Coast, yeah. 12 o'clock Thursday and 8 o'clock Monday night.
Okay.
Okay? All right, thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Thank
good
you.
night, guys.
Bye. Good night.